It's pretty dark.
There's a few empty seats up here.
There's some empty seats. One right here. Well, it's a few minutes after, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome. If it's your first time here at the Philip Grimes Outdoor Chattanooga Center, we're glad you made it out this evening for our first winter workshop. These are every Thursday from 6 to 7:30 and from now until the end of February. So if you enjoy this one, feel free to come back to the other ones. They're all free. We've got a flyer on the table as you walk in. If you didn't grab one, feel free to grab one on your way out, along with stickers and things. We have restrooms here if you need to use restroom. In the event there is an emergency, this door that you all came in will use, and also this one, unlikely hopefully, so, but just know that. And again, my name is James. I'm the recreation specialist here, and I will go over how to assemble a basket. We've got Anna Mathis, she's going to go over what to use. She's got a presentation, talk about invasives and how to identify them, remove them, and all that good stuff. We are streaming this through YouTube Live, so if you want to watch it again later, feel free, but that is happening. We're also, if you don't already know, part of the City of Chattanooga's Parks and Outdoors Department, and with that we have all kinds of social medias. Eric, he's in charge of that, he's here as well. Feel free to follow us, subscribe, all that good stuff. Stay in touch. We've got a newsletter that's pretty informative. Eric does a really good job with that, so maybe if you didn't hear about it through that, sign up for that. But I think that's about it. I will say that this is a pretty good turnout. Again, our first one for the year. So be mindful of your cell phones and communication. Just try to keep it to a whisper or minimum. Cell phones on vibrate or in close reach. So if it does ring, you can take care of that. And then that's about all I've got. I'm gonna hand it over to Anna and let her do her thing.
Thanks. How's everybody this evening? Can you hear me in the back?
Yeah.
Awesome. I didn't want to have to use a microphone. So yeah, thanks for coming out. My name's Anna Mathis. I'm the Natural Resource Manager for the Chattanooga Parks and Outdoors Department. So of course invasive species are one of my favorite things to try to get rid of in parks here in the city. This evening, I'm going to go over what is a native plant and why do we care about them. I have a list of top 10 invasives. It's really hard to narrow down to 10, but I tried my best. So we'll talk about some you might be really familiar with, some you might not be. Then I'll touch very lightly on managing invasives. This is a whole ball game with that, and these are just some very basic tips. You might have invasives in your backyard that you want to get rid of. I know I do. And so talk about that. And then we're going to talk about how you might be able to get involved with invasive removal at the City of Chattanooga. All right, so I'm going to start with definitions because I think that's really important to really talk about and level set on what we're talking about when we say an invasive plant. So a native plants, let's talk about those first. Those are plants that occur naturally in a particular region, and they're supposed to be here, right? They have been adapted to our habitat And they're here, and they have evolved here with our native flora and our native fauna. Non-native, that's a plant that has been brought to a particular region accidentally or intentionally, usually by humans. And then we have aggressive plants. So an aggressive plant is a plant that it could be native or non-native, and that has the potential to outcompete other plants and to spread. A good example of this one that I like to use, it's a native plant, but it's very aggressive, and we all don't like it, poison ivy, right? For multiple reasons we don't like it. And so we've got, so you can have aggressive, not native plants. But what we're talking about here tonight is our invasive, non-native plants. So they're plants that were brought here, either intentionally or unintentionally, and they're very aggressive. And they outcompete our native plants. Well, why should we care about that? As I mentioned just a little while ago, native fauna have co-evolved with native plants over millions and millions of years. So our caterpillars have evolved in order to eat a certain number of plants, and they get the right nutrition from those native plants. Now, if we have something else come in, they could potentially eat that, but it may not provide the right diet for them. No two plant species have the same leaf chemistry, so that's what sort of gets to the part that I was talking about. And so it gives each plant a unique taste, digestibility, and toxicity. And so, some animals or insects can eat certain plants and they can't eat other ones because of toxicity. A lot of insects also are adapted to feed and lay eggs on certain plant species. One of the key pictures that a lot of people talk about is our monarch caterpillar. It will only eat on milkweed plants, which are our native plants, and so that's the only way it's going to be able to survive. And so that's why we're seeing a decline in monarchs, one of the reasons, because we're losing those milkweeds to invasives and other things like habitat loss. And our native flora have also evolved with each other, and so they provide checks and balances with each other, for the most part. And so when you introduce a non-native species, then it can upset that balance, and so then they could take over, and that's part of the reason that they are aggressive. Everybody recognize this one? The vine that ate the South, right? Yeah, so lots of characteristics of invasive plants. So I'm just going to go over a few of those and highlight those. The biggest thing is that, yeah, again, they have a very fast growth rate. Kudzu can grow up to a foot a day. So they've got some very cool characteristics that make them very susceptible to being able to take over. And so they also mature earlier than other plants as well, mostly. And so, like in the spring when everything's waking up, some of the invasive plants come out earlier than the native plants, and so they shade out the native plants, and then the native plants can come up. Easy seed dispersal, germination, pollination. We have some plants have seeds that if you go out on a hike or something, they stick to your boots, to your pant legs, and then it's easy for them to go somewhere else. A lot of them are spread easily by wind as well. One example of that is the tree of heaven, which has really light seeds, and they're really easy to spread by wind. They adapt to a wide range of growing conditions. They're not picky on where they grow. It can be sun, it can be shade, it can be wet, it can be dry, that kind of stuff. And then they also have a longer flowering period as well. A lot of the ones that we see, and actually right now is a great time to do invasive removal, because some of the ones like privet and honeysuckle, they're still green. Nothing else is still green, right? Except for maybe your ornamental shrubs in your yard, evergreen shrubs. And so, they're easier to find right now. I will say the deep freeze that we had helped kill some of that. I was out in Renaissance yesterday, and a lot of that is, the English ivy has been killed off of the tree because of the frost. Now, whether or not it's going to come back, we'll see. How do these plants get here? I already talked about unintentional ways. So like, you could be out hiking, boating, something like that. You accidentally get some seeds on your clothes, on your boat, and then you take it somewhere else. That's one way. A lot of these plants got here intentionally. Kudzu was brought here because we needed something to help us with erosion control. And so somebody was over in Asia and was like, hey, this grows really fast, this will help with erosion control. Let's bring it over to the United States and let's see what it does. And sure, it helped with erosion control. It also helped crowd out everything else. Other intentional ways, ornamental stuff. So on the left, you see a hedge of privet. Privet was brought over here because it makes a great hedge shrub. And somebody was over in, a lot of these places, a lot of our invasives come from Asia, in that area because of they have a similar climate to what we have. So somebody brought it over here, we started planting it, we sell it in stores. People don't know that it's invasive, they don't know that it's non-native, they just want something pretty in their yard and something easy to take care of. And like I said earlier, invasive plants grow really fast. And so if you're a gardener or something, you may be looking for that, right? And so we have, privet, English ivy is another one that is still sold in stores, and honeysuckle as well. Other sort of unintentional ways, and one of the reasons why invasives are becoming more and more prolific and stuff is because there are factors that are happening in our world that are enhancing spread. And that includes globalization, we're trading more, we're moving around more, and stuff like that. And so, we've got hitchhikers that can hitchhike onto one of our cargo ships and come over. Or it could accidentally be in some crop seed that's coming over from somewhere else as well. And then also changes in our land use patterns. Invasive plants love disturbed areas. So when we're disturbing the areas to, let's say, develop a new home neighborhood, then we're inviting the invasives. We're creating a climate for them. And then, of course, climate change. So we've seen a lot of invasives that have been up in the northern area, and they've come south because of our climate changes. I'm going to talk a little bit about impacts of invasives. I've already talked about it a little bit, but just a little bit more on our ecological and economic impacts. Of course, I've been honing in on this. It decreases the diversity, our biodiversity. In fact, invasive plants are the #2 threat to biodiversity in our region, second only to habitat loss. It reduces the resources available to other plants and crowds them out. A lot of these may secrete chemicals that inhibit the growth of other plants. They're sneaky little buggers. They can also alter the soil composition, which could affect our decomposers within our soil. And I already talked about habitat and food availability for all of our fauna, animals, stuff like that. These numbers here, I think a lot of them cover all invasives. I'm only talking about plants tonight. We've also got invasive animals, we've got invasive organisms, stuff like that. 545 of 1,300 threatened or endangered species are at risk because of invasives. 5,000 non-native plants versus 17,000 natives in the U.S., and that's growing. We're finding more and more invasive plants every day. Economic impacts. Crop losses. So leafy spurge is a plant that overtook and invaded in the Great Plains, and actually overtook the crop that people use to graze their cattle. And so they're reducing land where cattle can actually be grazed. It costs a lot. You need money, you need time and resources and money in order to, first of all, figure out where your invasives are and how big of an impact they are, and then figure out what control methods you're going to use. Chemicals cost money, it takes a lot of time, you've got those kinds of resources. Invasive species in the U.S. Cost the U.S. $120 billion per year in environmental damages and control. Property values. So one that I think of when I think of property values, English ivy, it loves to grow up everything. And so it can grow up buildings and it can damage your building, reduce your property value. Timber production. Cheatgrass, actually no, not cheatgrass. Timber production. So just taking over, I got ahead of myself. I'm excited about the cheatgrass. Taking over where we have, English ivy, kudzu taking over all of the woods and stuff like that and affecting timber production. This is where I was going to talk about cheatgrass. All right, so cheatgrass is overtaking it in California, and it's actually causing and changing the frequency of wildfires over in the western United States. It has changed it from wildfires happening every 60, 110 years to every 3 to 5 years, because it's just so fuel efficient. Also, invasives can cause flooding, right? They can dam up areas, and when we have heavy rains like we had today, they can cause more flooding in our area. Recreation, some people, kudzu, sometimes it's hard to get through down the trail because there's too much kudzu growing. Health impacts. So, has anybody heard of giant hogweed yet? That one's not quite here yet. I know of, I haven't seen it, but it's up in the mid-Atlantic area, and it produces a toxic sap that can cause skin irritation and even blindness. So, and then also a lot of our invasives are habitat for disease vectors, such as the barberry that harbors ticks. I have a personal vendetta against ticks because they gave me the alpha-gal allergy, so yeah. And then also they can reduce freshwater water availability by causing high rates of transpiration. And then also dead trees. When English ivy stuff kills the trees, that is a safety issue. Again, I was over in Renaissance yesterday, and we had a lot of dead trees with hanging limbs and stuff that had happened because of invasives. And so, we got to think about that when we're looking at our trail system and for the safety of the public. Where do we find invasives? Almost everywhere. Who has an invasive in their yard? Who has more than one? 6. Yep. So a lot of them are, at your house. We find them around cities, in cities, along streams, a lot along streams in areas. And one of the reasons because of that is because the water is a good vector for seeds as well, and carrying seeds. Again, they like disturbed areas, so at forest. And you probably, now that I know what to look for, when I'm driving down the highway, all I see is the invasives. I don't even see. So, All right, so there's your introduction. Now to my top 10. Guess what my number 1 is? Kazoo. Yeah. I can project a little bit more. All right, so kudzu. It is a vine, and it has 3 leaflets, so it looks a little bit like poison ivy, right? Poison ivy's got 3, but it doesn't have that red dot in the center like poison ivy normally does. It has brown and hairy seed pods, and of course it spreads like crazy, bee runners. It prefers open and sunny areas, and of course it forms dense mats, which we've already seen. And again, I said it can grow up to a foot a day. We deal with kudzu a lot up at Stringer's Ridge, up at Spears Avenue Trailhead, if you're familiar with that. We're looking at getting goats to control it, so stay tuned. Japanese honeysuckle, who's familiar with this one? All right, who grew up sucking the little sweetness out of it? Who knew it was invasive when you were doing that? Not me. All right, so yeah, good one. So this is another vine. There's also a bush one that I'll talk about in a minute. I'm talking about vines right now. So evergreen, again, you'll see it in the winter. It's easy to identify in the winter. It has leaves 1 to 3 inches long, and it has black fruits in the fall, wide variety of habitats. And its main threat is that the birds like to eat it, so it spreads the seeds by birds. And then it, of course, smothers and girdles the trees just like kudzu. Now, there is a native honeysuckle. Who knew that? I got so lucky when I moved into my house, there was already one there. It's this beautiful, beautiful red bloom with these funny looking round leaves on it. It's really cool, really different. The hummingbirds love it. I have tons of honeybirds on my honeysuckle. Hummingbirds on my honeysuckle. So just remember, there is a native alternative for you. All right, this is my other arch nemesis, English ivy. Another one. Who has English ivy? Yeah. All right. So yeah, this is one that you see a lot at older homesteads and stuff like that. We have a lot of it up at Stringer's Ridge because there used to be an old homestead up there, and it has evergreen leaves as well that are very, very shiny, and it produces very dark purple fruit, which of course, again, the birds love. And the main thing with English ivy is that it blocks the sunlight and it kills trees very, very easily. So I wanted to give a little bit more minute to the ivy and tree situation. It's a vicious cycle, right? The bird eats the seeds. They poop out the seed. Or they fly somewhere else and then they poop out the seed. And then it grows, they climb the tree, and then the mature form has the seeds again. Did y'all know that it actually doesn't start seeding until it climbs vertical? So if it was just a carpet mat, which is still not wonderful, but at least it's not producing seeds, and that's the main way that it spreads from one location to the other. And so if anything, keep it from growing on your tree, because that's where it can kill the trees, and it can also cause the fruiting and the spread. They're just very heavy. It's a very heavy vine with heavy leaves, and so that's how it kills the tree. Winter creeper, unanimous. And who has this one? Who knows what this one is? All right. Again, we have tons of it in Renaissance Park right now. And so this is another vine. Leaves are opposite and glossy and simple. It has round pink fruits. It's evergreen, you can see it right now. It loves to lay a ground cover and loves to grow up trees as well. And again, spread by birds. Oh, there's birds. All right, get into shrubs a little bit. Bush honeysuckle. So this is the other honeysuckle I was talking about. It does multi-stemmed branches. The branches are really rough, and it has opposite leaves, and it has bright red berries. Who has this one there? And yeah, you're killing it up here. I mean, if we have if we had a contest, I think you'd win. All right. So this one loves to grow on the edge of forest. We see it all along the trails at Stringer's Ridge, Renaissance, Greenway Farm, everywhere. This lady's house. So, again, this is one of those ones that leaves out earlier than the natives. It also stays leafy later than the natives as well. So it's usually pretty easy to find in the winter. And then I've already touched on privet. Who has privet? He bought the privet and put it in their house. All right, good. Y'all passed. All right, so yeah, evergreen shrub, these lovely purple berries that birds love. Loves floodplains, fields, forest edges, all that. It's got pretty white flowers. Where's a nice shrub? Just takes over. Japanese stiltgrass. This is one that's probably a little less common for people. I wanted to throw one in, throw us off a little bit. But it's getting getting more and more prevalent around here. I've seen it along the trails up at Stringer's Ridge. It loves disturbed areas. And so it's an annual grass. And it grows slowly through the summer months. And it's very shade tolerant. Isn't that pretty? Wisteria, another one. I threw this one in here because I knew James was using it for his basket. I actually don't see it. I haven't seen it in a lot of parks. Who has it at their house? See?
My whole neighborhood has it.
The whole neighborhood. On purpose?
It's a 100-year-old neighborhood in Brainerd. It's one of the oldest, and it used to be in the country. Everybody's got it.
Yeah.
We got everything.
There is a native wisteria, but it's probably not the one that you'll have. Okay. So yeah, another woody vine, beautiful, showy purple flowers. Prefers full sun, but it'll persist in partial shade too. Loves to climb trees, shrubs, anything it can get its hands on. All right, now I'm going to talk about two trees, and then I'll be done with my top 10. Tree of Heaven. Who's heard of this one? Ailanthus. This one it's a deciduous tree. It has large, long, toothed leaves, and it can grow pretty tall. There's some pretty tall ones up at Spears Avenue trailhead. And the thing about it is you could cut it down, and it's just going to sprout up somewhere else. It sends out its little baby family everywhere. It could be one organism over like a couple acres. And so you don't really know where to start, right? With getting rid of that one, which is why it's still at Spears. We're still working on that. Grows very rapidly. And it also produces toxins that keeps other plants from establishing around it. There's a sort of a native lookalike sumac. You guys know sumac? One of the way you can tell the difference between the two, crush up the leaves of the Tree of Heaven, smell it. If it smells like burnt peanut butter, that's Tree of Heaven. Mimosa, who knows this one? Mimosa. This is the one I see driving down the hallway. I'm like, look at that awesome pink, fuzzy pink stuff. That's the mimosa tree. Deciduous tree, multiple trunks, really tiny, feathery, nice looking leaves, looks a little different than everything else. And these pink blooms that are very feathery. It has dangling flat pods in the summer. Loves road edges, you see it everywhere. And it also has the ability to re-sprout and has long-lived seeds. I think we're taking questions at the end. Okay. Can you hold on to it? The question.
I just found out if the host favorite spotted lantern fly.
Oh, which is another invasive, right? Yeah, so she just said tree of heaven is the host plant for the spotted lanternfly, which is an invasive insect that's making its way down here from the mid-Atlantic. And so, yeah, we've got our eyes open for that because we do not want to. Very good. Thank you for that tidbit. All right, managing invasives. Like I said, I'm just going to cover some pretty basic stuff, and then I'm going to provide you resources at the end where you can learn more, because there's a whole bunch of resources out there. So it's a lot easier to get because they form deep roots, and they're so aggressive. It's a lot easier to get these things when they're first started. One of our favorite volunteer projects to do is to take some volunteers out, and we're just pulling baby privet all over the place. It's easy, it's satisfying. You get a lot done, and you keep it from getting bigger and producing seed, and thus spreading. So looking for new growth, making sure you know what those look like when they're babies. Then limit seed and seed production. I already talked about this a little bit with English ivy, keeping that English ivy off those trees so that they cannot produce seed. Sometimes we can't get to, like for example, our bush honeysuckle, we can't get to actually cutting it down and treating it with herbicide because of our limited resources sometimes. And so what we do is we just cut off the branches when they're fruiting and we bag them so that they can't spread. And then we'll go back and recut and herbicide when we have time. Or pull it out. Know when it blooms, know the life cycle of your plant. And then again with annuals, remove them. So that would be like the still grass, remove it before it goes to seed as well. And then, yeah, just to reiterate, bag those seeds. Don't just throw them to the side. Bag them, put them in the trash. And please don't take them to the Wood Recycle Center. The Wood Recycle Center where you can take and get your brush. You know, when we pick up brush in the city, we take it to the Wood Recycle Center and we chip it up and it produces mulch for our citizens. Well, if the seeds are in that mulch, they can re-sprout. What else can you do to reduce spread? And this really talks about when you're going out, not just at your home with your invasives, but when you're going out into the world, you know, we humans can be vectors for spread. And so making sure when you've gone out somewhere, before you get in your car to leave that place, look at your clothes, make sure you get all your seeds off your clothes, that kind of stuff. Brush off your boots. If you're taking your boat out on the water, when you get your boat out on the water, wash it down before you put it on your car and head out. Don't move firewood. You probably, if you're a camper like me, you've probably seen a lot of this. You know, sometimes it's easy for you to just pick up your firewood and take it with you, but please don't do that. Please use the firewood in the place where you are. You can buy certified heat-treated firewood, normally at a lot of these places. Target specific areas and or specific plants. It can be overwhelming, especially if you've got how many? Six invasives on your property. It'd be very, very overwhelming. So start small. Don't get overwhelmed by it. We started in Renaissance when I started at the city 7 years ago. We started little by little working with invasives there, and we've made a pretty big dent. It's taken a long time. We know that it's going to, but starting small, making it get an easy win. So that could be something like just focusing on one plant, just trying to get the English ivy out, or just focusing on one small area. Like, for example, just the fenced-in area of your backyard. Managing from the edge. So don't dive into the middle of the patch. Start on the edge, and then you can sort of work your way into the middle. And then when you're also managing from the edge, you're keeping it from spreading out from where it is, right? So sometimes we manage based on trails. So if there's a trail, a dividing area, we'll focus on one side before we even think about starting the other side. Be persistent and follow up. You gotta keep going back to that site and making sure things are happening, things aren't coming back, things aren't sprouting back. Stuff can sprout back. We got baby privets coming up at Renaissance, that kind of stuff. And then you just sort of, it's a cycle. Then you start over again. You're looking for early detection, looking for things that are coming back up. Don't create more problems. These are tips to do that. Use your least disruptive method as possible. Some people just want to go and just bulldoze, take everything out. Well, what that does is that disturbs the seed bank, and it can provide another opportunity for more invasive seeds to come up and sprout. That goes aligns with the second one. Another word of caution is when you're using, because it was brought in for erosion control, right? So it could be on the slopes of stream banks. Well, we don't want to cause more erosion issues because that also causes reduced water quality. And so just making sure you're putting back something when you remove something. You're replacing it with a native plant. We also use wood chips. We use mulch to sort of make a layer to reduce that erosion, but it also helps smother those seeds that could possibly be in the seed bank. Talked about bagging plants, and of course save the native species wherever possible. I like to go out to an area and make sure I've tagged where my natives are so that I'm not disturbing them. Sometimes we can just get so excited to pull our plants that we get carried away, and then all of a sudden you've pulled a milkweed or something. So these are just some general guidelines for removing shrubs, and then I'll talk about vines as well. Again, it's so much easier when they're small, removing them by hand. Larger plants will require digging. You want to get the roots out as much as possible. And I'm talking about mechanical removal. I'll hit a little bit on chemical control, but I'm not an expert on that, but I'll give you some resources for herbicide use. But right now, mechanical. Who's used a weed wrench or an uprooter before? All right, we've got some pros in here, it looks like. Yeah, so this is a great tool. Google uprooter. You can order it online. And it's basically a levered, and I think you've seen probably some of them in my pictures, if not the pictures to come. And so it pulls it up by the roots. It makes you feel like Superman or Superwoman, being able to pull it up, and you get all the roots out. Removal is best done when soil is moist. So after a big rain, it's kind of nice to go out, and if it's not too muddy. And just remember that any roots may or sprout, so you do have to go back and keep looking. So there is a herbicide method called cut stump or cut and paint, which is being shown in this picture right now. It's really important. Just the one thing to remember that's really important about that is that if you're cutting, if you can't pull it up and you decide your method is to cut an herbicide, you need to herbicide immediately after you cut. You can't cut and go back the next day. So pretty much immediately, within a couple hours, you need to put that herbicide on there. Basically, you're just sort of painting it on there, and it'll pull into the plant. Vines. So the best way to get rid of vines, especially as they're growing on the tree, is to cut around the tree at the bottom. So cut on the bottom where it touches the ground, and then also cut about a foot or two up, and then only pull off that part. When you start pulling the vine off of the whole entire tree, you could be damaging the tree. You could be pulling bark off of that tree. Once you eliminate its life source, it's going to die, and it'll be all right. So making sure you do that. So people, it's also more safe that way. If you get gung ho and start pulling vines, you can pull something else. And then pull the vines away from the tree so that it doesn't have a chance to go back up that tree. Make sure you're pulling it away. On the ground, removing it by hand. Japanese honeysuckle vine is one of my favorites to remove because it's like a puzzle or a maze. You just start pulling it up, and you can end up all the way around this room. And so, yeah, you're looking for where it originated from, and then you just do it again. You just keep pulling. You can also try smothering it with newspaper or mulch. We've had a lot of success when we mulch our leaves over at Renaissance, putting some mulch leaves down and helping smother it out a little bit. Again, just want to reiterate, just be careful when it comes to chemical. Especially, glyphosate is used a lot. We've all heard about Roundup and some of the health issues it can cause. And so just make sure you're following the label. It's also important not only for your health to follow the label, but to make sure that you're not putting more into the environment that's being harmful for the environment. There is no fruiter. Don't leave home without it. Don't leave home without that, or an ID book, or an app. One of my favorite things is the iNaturalist app. Has anybody heard of that one? iNaturalist. So you can just take a picture of it, and it'll recommend if you don't know what it is, it'll recommend what you think it is. iNaturalist. Take a picture, and it will help recommend what it is. I think Google Lens is also apparently really popular now and really getting better. I'm an Apple user, so I don't have Google Lens. But, and also I love iNaturalist because it also tracks your native plants too. That's how I identify my native plants in my yard. And it gives me a record of it. There's also some great ID books out there, and I'll talk about those in a minute. Pruners, saws, can come in handy. Another thing that can come in handy, especially when you're pulling those vines off of the tree, is like an old screwdriver or a putty knife. It gives you a little leverage there. Garbage bags, gloves. You never know when you're going to hit a thorn or something like that, so make sure you're protecting your hands. That kind of stuff. First aid kit, in case you run into poison ivy. All right, and then these are some resources that I refer to. TNIPC, Tennessee Invasive Plant Council, TNIPC.org. They've got a great invasive plant primer, homeowner guide that can get you started on control. They also are the source of the list of invasives in Tennessee and their threat level. And so you can go there, they've got this great list. You can see what plants there are, because again, I only touched on 10. There's way more than that. And which ones are huge threats and which ones are emerging threats that you might want to be on the lookout for. EDMAPS, EDD Maps, is also a great resource. It'll tell you the geographical range of your invasive plant. It also helps you with identifying, has some great photos. and also has some management information as well. And then these are 2 books that you can find online. Invasive Weeds of the Appalachian Region is a great ID book. And then Invasive Plants of Southern Forest is a great management, ID and management book. And you can find those online. All right, so now I'm going in with volunteer opportunities. And then James is going to wow you with his basket weaving. So, think about this. If you come to Weed Wrangle on Saturday, March 4th, Weed Wrangle is an international volunteer work day, and we're going to be right over here in Renaissance Park. We've done it every year for the past 6 or 7 years. You can uproot some native plants, get some vines, and then go home and make your basket. So, if you don't have 6 invasive plants in your yard, come out to Renaissance and I will let you take them home for free. So you can sign up at our webpage, timecounts.org/CHA Parks is our Park Steward webpage. And you can sign up there. And we have a whole lot of fun. And hopefully the weather will be nice. And so then we also have our Chattanooga Park Stewards program. That's our volunteer program with Chattanooga Parks and Outdoors. It's really easy to get involved. We have work days like Weed Wrangle, and I think we'll be doing some invasive removal along Stringer's Ridge later this year. We also do other things if you get tired of removing invasives. We paint barns. We plant native plants. Put native plants back in, and then do mulching, weeding, that kind of stuff. So if you're interested, we have work days. We also have a way where you can adopt your local park. So you can help us by doing trash removal in a local park. You can also become what we call an eco-steward through our Park Steward program and help with taking care of some of our native pollinator gardens or doing some invasive removal on your own in parks. So go to timecounts.org/CHA Parks to get signed up. And we have a way where you can sign up and get a newsletter as well. All right, that's what I've got. Questions? Or are we just eager for some basket weaving? Any questions about invasives? All right. Well, my job's done then. It's up to you now.
So the way I envision this kind of working out is kind of talking about what I used and how and the whole process. And so I've got it kind of laid out to what I harvested to in the middle and a finished product here is a basket. So I'll be honest, I'm not a professional basket weaver. This is one of 2 that I've ever made. The first one was maybe half of this, got half this distance. So timing-wise, that's been a big question. How long does it take? For me, I was not very particular, and I spent a work day just about make this basket. So that's something to think about. With that, I attended meetings, so stop, start, stop, back and forth. I didn't just sit down and make a basket. So, but if you have time to make that happen, good for you. There are several types of baskets. There's round ones, square ones, tall ones, short ones, whatever. This is known more as an egg basket, I believe. Again, I'm not a professional. I don't know the ins and outs of baskets. I just attended a class a long time, almost a decade ago, and that's kind of where the idea came from. But here we are. So basically, to start your basket, you need to make a frame. And with that, so this is grapevine. It was been coiled up for a while, but unlike Anna said, you can grab this, swing across from one tree to another until it breaks. And you got what you need, right? That's, So, no, I'm just kidding. Don't go swinging from this vine. It's very tempting. I probably did do it as a kid. But basically, if you just cross it and zigzag, so you can make this frame's kind of set the tone for the size of your basket. So you can, with this one, it could potentially be like this big. You can tighten it up to make it smaller. You can cut it down to make it smaller. You can find a bigger vine to swing from and make a bigger one. But essentially, that's all you have to do to do that. So you'll make 2 of these. Once you've done that, you kind of put them together. This is a small one, right? So, and again, you can be as creative as you want with this whole process. You can spend as much time or as little time gathering. Again, that time frame did include going out to Stringer's Ridge, getting the vine, getting the kudzu and the privet. I guess I kind of skipped over that, but that's what I gathered. I gathered the vine. I got a bunch of privets. So, and then I got a bunch of kudzu and English ivy. I just kind of tied it up like this, pulled out different lengths, however much I could pull off at a time, something like this, short or kind of medium, and then short, small. You likely you'll use it all. If not, you've removed it, right? So, feeding 2 birds with 1 stone kind of thing. So. Don't be afraid to take more than you think you're going to need. I thought that I had a whole bunch, and it ended up just having enough to make 1 basket. So gather it up, attend the weed wrangle, March 4th, 9 to noon. Request to take it all home and start your Etsy kudzu basket business if you want. But so with that, and if something's not making sense, feel free to raise your hand. I can, again, go back over it. But anyway, so this is your frame. Yes, what you got?
Do you need to let your vines like dry out?
Right, yeah. So I did not. You can, again, that's back to the timing. You can spend as much time. You can let these vines soak in water, and you can strip the outside of them, and you get different colors. Again, I did not. I just went to the park, yanked everything out, brought it back, put it together. So you might get a better product if you're trying to sell them on Etsy or something silly like that. But me, I was just knocking it out. So good question. Let's see. So with that, so once you have your frame, so basically I made 2 of these loops, and I kind of stuffed them together. There's nothing holding this other than just purely pushed it together. That's going back to sizing it. If it's too loose, tighten it up, make another loop, get it to where it's going to be pretty snug, kind of like this. I made mine so that I knew that this part was going to be my handle. Some people I've seen online on Etsy that that this would be the handle, so it would look like this all the way around, right? For mine, again, there's no right or wrong way to make your own basket. So I know that this is my handle. This is going to be like the rim, and then these little pieces of privet, they would probably look something like this. Lots of little weeds on it. This one was cut maybe 7 or 8 months ago from my yard. So with this, you want to get all these little lumps off, these little sticks off, and you're trying to make it look nice and smooth, something more like this. And these are going to be your ribs, the ribs of the basket. So this one is with your ribs. You want to start with you want to cut the ends, make sure that they're going to be that they're angled like this and not blunt, because you're going to take that angle and shove into the vine so that it grabs it, and then from there you can measure. So if I wanted this basket to be kind of skinny like this, or if I want it to be nice and plump, I would cut this privet so that it would make the shape that I'm after, right? Again, there's no right or wrong way, but with this basket, you're trying to get the privet to line up with the vine. So something like this. So this piece I would kind of measure it this way. And again, I'm not trying to make a perfect basket here. So I kind of mark where I want to cut it, and then cut that at an angle. Watch your eyes, Anna. So that I can feed it in through the vine, and then without it taking up too much space. And when it's blunt, it's gonna fill in, it's gonna kind of push it out and maybe not work out so well. But this way that it wedges in there. And again, these are your ribs. So this would be the rib of the basket. You can start to see it kind of taking shape. And you would do that with maybe 3, I think I've used 3 on this one, but again, this is just a quick demonstration with old privet. I think I knew that one was going to happen. Again, harvest more than you think you're going to need, because and I did learn that with this basket here. So this one's already pre-cut. I already have them, the angles like I think I want them. Anyway, so so it starts to come together a little bit. This one's all broken as well.
Is friction above it hold it in place?
Yes.
When you glue it or anything?
No, I don't glue it. This one's broken. Anyway, so once you get your ribs, and your basket will start to come to life a little bit. Again, these weren't soaked. They were cut a long time ago, but I would say at least 3 ribs, so 3 pieces of privet that are going to come together, and then from there you just start. You can start to see. I started on the bottom of this one. I just took some English ivy and just started attaching the ribs to the actual vine of the basket, and that's when it started to stay together. So just a simple, just over and under weaving, getting all this tied together, and then from there I started using the kudzu and just started going over and under the ribs and the vine. So just over and under, over and under. Once you've used your piece of your piece of kudzu, just start over. You can. For me, I did the same thing as I did with my rib. I just kind of cut an angle, and then I'd stuff that like I did with the ribs, and then just started weaving as well, going over and under, and that's what you get. Like I said, a few things. I did add an extra rib. So once I started getting this high up on this size basket, I didn't like the way it was looking, so I just added a rib and started incorporating that into my weaving process. So it's not waterproof or anything. It would be great for like mushroom foraging, so that the spores could fall through, kind of thing. Erica's teaching a workshop on that, so attend that. But yeah, that's kind of.
What do you do on the side, that crisscross thing to finish it off?
So there's no rhyme or reason to that. I think once I got to this upper point, I just kind of needed to buy some room,
Yeah.
and so I just kind of went around it as I felt, as my little heart desired. I said, I like this look. I'm gonna go with that.
It's
So,
nice too.
thanks. And again, so there are multiple ways to weave. So at the bottom, once I went over and under. If you can't see, you can come up in just a few minutes. I can pass this around. But there was a point where I wanted to change the look, so I started going around this part of the. Watch your eyes. I started going around the actual vine just to change it up a little bit. So that's kind of where this look came from. Otherwise, it would have just looked like this, over and under. And I also liked that I wanted to have it alternating. So once I ran out of vine, I started going over and under, over and under. Once I ran out of vine, I started going over and under, over and under. Just kind of went back and forth so that it looked like this. So, does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. Any questions?
When you talk about cleaning the rib, are you thinking of those little
Mhm.
they're not a handy tool for trick.
No, I just had one of these little blades, and
Just there's a, okay, so great pop.
I can show you. Oh, look at this. Basically, it doesn't take much. I just took this little blade and just kind of rubbed them off until I got it nice and smooth. And again, you can, if you like the knots, feel free to keep them. It's your basket. But that's kind of the method that I used. And I just, again, I just looked online, figured it out. But yeah, good question. I will say that I did try to use a rib that wasn't smooth, and my kudzu would get hung up on it as I was weaving it. So I will say that was another pro to that. And it can make a mess. My office mates bared with me. Let me make a mess. So I appreciate that. But at any rate, so feel free to come up, check this thing out. Let me know if you have any questions. And again, this is more of an egg basket, so you can. I don't recommend putting all your eggs in one basket, but if it's the only basket you have.
Pretty hanging basket with
Yes,
flowers
yeah,
hanging out.
exactly. You can, yeah.
Pretty.
Again, be as creative or artistic as you like with these things.
Some cuts it in.
You just gather more kudzu.
Yeah. Have your head captured. Yeah. Go ahead, yes.
I kind of wonder about,
Jasmine.
the longevity of the life that's in the vine.
Yeah.
Assuming you have a basket you have it for a very long time, but is there like sort of a life that's remaining in there so that if you were just to discard your supplies at the end, you should do something where they won't scrap it? Or is that possible?
Say that again.
Like the
So,
vines,
uh-huh.
or I think this vine got fruit stuff like the vine, the fruits themselves are divining.
Okay.
I thought about this process, but I wondered if, like, is there a time that would still stay alive? Somebody didn't, you know?
I don't know.
It's why people get trees or grow everything.
Yeah.
Right, to destroy the.
I see. I don't know.
the property,
Yeah.
and then it just gives it to the person.
Yeah, that's probably maybe more of your question. If you cut some vine and just let it lay in the grass, would it regrow kind of thing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah,
you did like
potentially.
sort of get into a fascinating process of being
Yeah.
creative with invasives to this level, like, is there any chance that it would ever, at some point within some timeline, sort of sprout up again? Be conscious of that.
Yeah, I would just be conscious of, I think it would have to have the right, sort of conditions, like if you're just collecting kudzu and putting it out behind your, in a brush pile to save for later, then yeah, it's probably gonna resprout. But if you're bringing it into the garage or something like that, I don't know, I've never really tried it, but
I don't think after it's dried all
I would
out.
think after it's dried out,
I would think
it
so
would be
too.
fine. Yeah,
You could probably polyurethane it if you wanted to make sure.
yeah, if you wanted to really, yeah, and
I mean, they have
longevity
satin
for
finish,
that
so it would
too,
look
yeah,
natural, but it would keep it from doing that.
yeah,
But
and it increases its longevity. Do you have a question?
Do you all have any basic, like, online or printout, like you said?
Yeah.
Make your two things.
I don't. Yeah.
I mean, I maybe remember that.
Yeah.
Like, looking at things.
Yeah, I could probably make something. I struggled with that as well. I didn't have any sort of printout. So,
Well, you did great.
well, thanks. I think I could put something together that's like more step by step.
You could sell that.
Yeah,
You wanna buy it?
You could sell that.
I've been joking about having a silent auction. So. Yeah.
You make it seem like you didn't try very hard on that, but it's a good look at that.
Honestly, I didn't try that hard. So.
I know, you were not.
It just turned out. I think I got lucky,
worth $20 an hour.
Beginner's luck. I think I'm retiring from my basket weaving career. But yeah. Thanks, Logan. Feel free to come up, check it out, put hands on it, and ask questions. We do have a few more minutes, so No rush, no rush. And again, that's it. And I think Eric might have some announcements. No, never mind.
I just want to thank everyone for coming out. Y'all, it means the world to us that y'all come out and participate in these winter workshops. We love hosting these. We've got a bunch more coming up the rest of this month and next month, so please come out to the rest of them. There's some schedules up there, little brochures about it, but yeah, we love these. Keep coming out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
When did you make this? How long ago was it?
This has been about 2 weeks ago.
Solid.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah, check it out. You can see my ribs here.